welcome. Welcome to the Strategic Infrastructure of Ukraine panel, Building Resilience of Ukraine, Stronger Together. My name is Marcel FOCA. I'm a senior expert with New Strategy Center. My background is on technology, so I will approach the infrastructure topic, strategic infrastructure, as systems of systems, which have to be managed together, especially from the resilience point of view. Before entering into the topic, please allow me to introduce you my distinguished speakers. I will start with Mr. Sergei Nazarenko. He worked more than 15 years in the security service of Ukraine in the field of protection of the critical energy infrastructure. Since 2022, Mr. Nazarenko takes the position of the head of the Office of Identification and Counteraction to Threats of Critical Infrastructure Objects of NPC Ukrenergo, which is the national power company Ukrenergo. For the Romanian audience, Ukrenergo is the equivalent of Transelectrica in Romania. Then we are pleased to have with us Mr. Kaush ARHA. Welcome. Mr. ARHA is a non-resident fellow, senior fellow in the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub. Mr. ARHA previously served as United States Agency for International Development, USAID, senior advisor on strategic engagement, where he led the global agency-wide framework to counter malign actions of US adversaries. Before that, Mr. ARHA served as a senior transition advisor at the US Embassy in Kabul, where he coordinated with the government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, the International Security Assistance Force. As senior coordinator for agriculture, he also directed the US Interagency Agricultural Assistance in building the Afghan agricultural economy. Is it correct? Thank you. Then on my side is Mr. Laurențiu MIHAI, with over 20 years of experience in the public health sector with excellent network in Eastern Europe. Since 2005, Mr. MIHAI was playing a vital role throughout the transformation of the Romanian public health sector for the European integration, covering a range of managing roles in the Ministry of Health, Statutory Health Insurance Institution, Pharmaceutical Association, and lately with the national organization implementing the EU Falsified Medicines Directive in Romania. And also we are having here Mr. Cristian LUCACIU from VIAROM. Mr. LUCACIU in 1999 joined Aker Kværner Group in Norway, working in the export department of their factory for nuclear equipment. Then he moved to Alstom Power in France, where he was appointed director of project management division, later joined Vinci Group in France. Then since 2018, he decided to join VIAROM, one of the important construction companies in Romania. Gentlemen, welcome to the panel. I just want to check if Mr. Sergei Nazarenko is online with us. Do you see us? Okay, it should be. Before starting with the first speaker, with Mr. Nazarenko, I would like to invite you to an imagination exercise. Let's consider visualizing a grid, a lot of nodes and multiple lines between almost any two nodes there. Yeah? This is a system. And when we are considering a system, we are approaching a system, we have to consider as being same important both the nodes and the line, the connection between nodes. There are some nodes which are more important than the others. I mean, destroying one node might not have the same impact like destroying another node. One node might break the entire system. Another node might break just part of the system. Or a connection line between nodes might have different impact. If we are speaking about NPC Ukrenergo, they are having in Ukraine, as I saw, more than 100 stations there, 110 stations. That means at least so many nodes with a lot of lines between them. And this is just one system. If we are moving at a different dimension, we might have the health system. Yeah? Health means completely different nodes than the nodes in the previous system and with different other connecting lines, that the connecting lines between the energy nodes. Two parallel systems which are interacting, they are influencing one the other. Which one is important, which one is less important, or which is having what kind of impact on the other, we have to see this. Hopefully we'll see this. Anyway, all this needs to be constructed. All these systems needs to be constructed. Therefore, we are having VIAROM here, a construction company. Yeah? We'll find out what means to build such systems. And in a completely different dimension, on top of all these systems, are the policymakers. They have to take care about all these systems simultaneously. They have to manage the impact of one system on another system. So here we'll have Mr. Kaush ARHA speaking from this perspective. So let's consider that we are speaking about systems, and managing simultaneously multiple systems. Okay. This is my background of technology, so it's not a political introduction, but a technical introduction into the panel. Mr. Sergei, do you hear us? Do we have to wait? Okay. It looks like they are having just an emergency. They had to go down in a basement, and after the alarm will stop, hopefully Mr. Nazarenko will become online, will join us. Yeah. So let me tell you a few things. What I found about national power company Ukrenergo. Just to have an idea of what means a war and what means an infrastructure. Before the war, Ukraine was one of the Europe's largest energy markets. In 2020, Ukraine was among the top 30 global electricity exporters. Mr. Nazarenko, are you with us?
Okay, I can hear you, but to be closer to the topic, let me to speak Ukraine.
Please.
Yes.
Are you going to speak in Ukraine?
Yes, yes. If it's comfortable for you.
Yes, but please allow us to the speakers to take our headsets. Yeah.
Okay.
for translation.
Okay, okay.
Yes, please.
Можно говорить?
Yeah.
So I can start. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important meeting. Unfortunately, I am now in a bunker because we have air alert in Kiev. It's the 4th today. Let me say that almost all states of the world know of Ukraine's energy issues due to the pressure put by the Russian Federation. It is for the first time in history that the Ukrainian energy system has faced such difficult issues. We undergo systematic attacks. 40%, 40, of the critical infrastructure of Ukraine is impacted. High voltage lines are impacted. But due to the professionalism of specialists in energy and with the support of external partners, our energy system stands strong. And we will supply the necessary electricity to our market. The Russian terrorists continue their criminal actions attacking critical infrastructure. They want to destroy our defense capacities. Russia's attacks on our electricity system do not consist only in cyber attacks, but also information, drone attacks. This also creates quite the issue externally. These will create a bottleneck when we need imports as well. This impacts the electricity market, undoubtedly. It stops us from creating a new system as we wanted, and we are not still an attractive market from this perspective, although we are working on this intensely. We want to be part of the interconnected uniform system of Europe. Currently, we have great experience in working under crisis situations to provide energy security for us and the partners that we export to. The authoritarian regimes such as Russia and its partners put these obstacles in our way. We identify some challenges for Ukraine's electricity system, that is providing energy security, the decarbonation process of the energy system, and drawing in investments in this critical sector. Of course, under critical aggression circumstances, the zero priority for us is, or top priority for us is to provide the defense with all it needs. We are now starting a broad process of rebuilding the energy system. And we want to get everything we need to start this reconstruction process. In addition, we need equipment, new, solid equipment to be able to implement the projects that we want to put in practice. We understand that we need professionals as well that know how to deal with such broad projects. Let me stress that the issues that we are facing are quite significant, but we have solutions to overcome them. Some are not actually only up to Ukraine. These are regional issues that we can tackle together with our partners. Currently, priorities for us consist in investments in this field. We need electricity storage conditions as well, or facilities. And we need to draw in or to pick the interest of companies in this field to increase electricity exports. At the same time, another priority consists in building hubs for preventing crisis, some sort of platforms that secure our resilience. Despite Russia's destructive action, all states stand united in this respect. The misinformation of the population, the blackmail against civil servants at various levels, the involvement of various organizations, they all want to destroy all our efforts. And for us, the lesson to learn here is that totalitarian regimes must not beat democratic ones. In order to live together, we need freedom. That is why developing energy systems, interconnection with European markets, will ensure our resilience and our existence as a state. This is briefly what I wanted to say about our priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Nazarenko, for your message. We are now moving forward to the next speaker. Therefore, I'm inviting Mr. Laurențiu MIHAI to show us his presentation.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. We all, yesterday and earlier today, heard such distinguished speakers about the high-level perspective of rebuilding Ukraine and getting them, well, closer to the European and Northern Atlantic organization. I will give you a rather narrow and also a little bit more concrete approach. A little bit of context. First, we have this European legislation about a pan-European IT system of verification of the medicine, aiming at preventing the entry of falsified medicine into the legal chain. There is a one European system, but it is formed by each member state's own national system connected through a hub. What is very unique about this system is that it is the first time in the history of European Union that European directive is to be implemented not by the national authorities of the member states, but by newly incorporated non-governmental, not-for-profit organizations formed by the pharmaceutical associations of producers, wholesalers, and pharmacists. It's like herding a lot of cats together, because you can imagine that the interests in the pharmaceutical industry are, well, rather complementary, to say the least. The system consists of producers printing on every pack of medicines of a unique data matrix code, and this code also being uploaded in a European hub. The verification means that every time the medicines pack change hands, that code will be verified through scanning. Well, the patient safety is obviously the most important objective of this system, but also the authorities have access to more than 30 types of different reports, knowing at this level of granularity, at level of each package, what is happening in their national pharmaceutical chain. This is a very simplified scheme of what the system is and how it works. Now, why have I bothered you with such details? Ukraine asked the European Commission to incorporate themselves such a national organization and also to be allowed to connect with the European system. The European Commission answered by the book that the acquis communautaire is way bigger than one directive, and Ukraine will be able to join the system after the accession to the EU. Well, this was the moment when our national organization, together with some colleagues in Brussels, stepped up in order to help our friends and neighbors from Ukraine to prepare themselves. Because, believe it or not, this is a very complex and huge system. The manufacturers of medicines pay for the entire system. That means hundreds of millions of euros. And also, the authorities are not involved at all. So, well, it took us in the rest of the European countries, on average, more than 3 years to set up the system, and none of our countries were at war. Seeing this as a quite important challenge, we tried to help our Ukrainian partners. And that help means anything from drafting the necessary legislation to help them better understand what this kind of private initiative means. You may look at this slide as a very narrow or, I don't know, technical and specific system for the pharmaceutical industry, but behind every picture there in the slide, there is a big part of national infrastructure. If you may look at it as the important logistic chain of transportation, of warehouses, for medicines. The production line from the medicine producers, the hardware and the software of the entire IT system behind the verification of billions of packs on all the European market, you may imagine that we are talking here about, well, a big part of the national infrastructure. And also, what I couldn't represent in the slide was the non-tangible elements. Because in order for the industry to set up such a system, you need a certain, well, maturity of the market. You need a certain maturity of and mutual trust between the actors in the industry. And, well, I dare say you need a certain level of maturity of the society, of the civil society, because, like I said, the national authorities have no say in incorporating and managing this kind of system. It's not easy. It took, like I said, all of us around Europe a couple of very intense years, but looking at the determination of our partners in Ukraine, we are all confident that things will happen, and they will be ready to join one way or another our well, logistical chains, our common European pharmaceutical industry, and hopefully at a certain time in the future also the European Union. Well, thank you for your attention, and I'm here for any question you may have.
Mr. MIHAI, what you succeeded to do there, it's quite similar what is in digital reality means blockchain. Yeah, it's exactly the equivalent, ensuring that the original travels through the system and there are not counterfeit products.
Sort of, because this is a closed system. Only the pharmacists and the wholesalers are allowed to enter the system and to verify the packs by scanning. But yeah, sort of.
Good, thank you. Now, going further, I invite Mr. Cristian LUCACIU to take the floor.
Saudi? Yeah. Good evening, good afternoon. I want to thank a lot the New Strategy Center for the invitation to... I want to thank the New Strategy Center for inviting me and, of course, my company to be part of this 2 day of conference, and, of course, about to be part of this panel. I will try to speak a little about the two systems that you asked to speak. First, I will try to speak a little about the system of infrastructure of roads, where my company works from more than 25 years, and we have such experience here. And also, I will try to point a little an idea about the general system of all this reconstruction of Ukraine phenomenon, and maybe to point one or two ideas that maybe will be of the final list of conclusion of this 2 days. So regarding the infrastructure, yes, I consider not only my company, which is a quite medium company in Romania, but I consider in Romania it's enough expertise and enough knowledge in order to help and to participate to Ukrainian reconstruction. Why? First of all, because in a way, in last 20 years, also in Romania, we face same infrastructure problem regarding lack of highway, lack of roads, and so on, so that probably today also Ukraine face it. and probably, and also because in Romania already exists experience about how to handle all these funds, like pre-accession accession funds, post-accession funds, all the steps and all the paper and all the bureaucracy in back of these funds, and how to handle with this. And probably the experience of a construction company, not only how to construct something in Ukraine, how to do a highway or a road or something like this, but also the experience how to access all this communication and all this procedure together with European Union probably will be a plus. This is one aspect. Second issue that I want to point. Okay, maybe I will repeat some ideas that it was already presented, but some of other speakers in South today. Of course, us as a private at the private part of this story. Okay, we are not political. We are not association. We are not non-governmental. We are a private company. We are a little more practical, and okay, we have intention to go. We have intention to help. We have intention to participate. But for the moment, for us, it's a kind of fog, because we don't have answer to few questions. Some of them was already raised in the past today, like how will be financed, how will be guaranteed, how will be the effective procedure for such an for such an access. So maybe I made a recommendation for you as an organizer. Maybe if you create a short list of conclusion, I consider a kind of organism, a kind of I don't know, something that represent Romanian authority, Romanian states to be created. I don't know, an association, an ministry, and department in a ministry or something like this. To be something that to represent the state, to be institutionalized, to represent the state somewhere where us as a private company to go there in order to receive some answer, how to do it. And I saw something interesting in first day. It was 2 or 3 countries, Greece and France, if I remember well, which already have appointed something like an ambassador for reconstruction of Ukraine, or minister or something like this. I saw in first day. So probably also in Romania to create such an institution or such a structure in order to, how to say, to put together all the systems that you talk about, the energetic system, road system, health system, and so on. So to put together all this system and to be able to answer, and not only to answer, to guide us in order to be more easy for us to go in this direction. Thank you.
Mr. LUCACIU, thank you. I'm quite sure that this kind of governmental reaction will follow, will come. There are not too many companies or people saying how valuable is to speak the EU language when accessing financing and yeah. I remember that at the beginning, all of us in 90 something, before 20 years, all of us were quite stressed about the huge paperwork. We did not understood why there are so many papers to fill in. We just want to do our job. Then we slowly we started to understand why they are important, all those documents, and by understanding the documents, the mentality has changed. And now looking back, I'm saying it was a very useful learning process, mentality shift.
Yes, I fully agree with you. Around 20 years ago, when Romania started to access to these funds, unfortunately, all the huge companies from Europe that come here to work and to help us, they don't have experience of another wave of country adoration. And in a way, now in the Eastern Europe, it's the only part of the Europe where exists expertise to all this bureaucratic process. And when I say bureaucratic, I don't say, don't think at the bureaucratic word as a negative meaning. Bureaucratic means, in fact, a flow of processes and milestones that assure the process go forward and go forward with transparency and correct go forward. So in a way here in Eastern Europe, in construction company and probably in energy company, probably also in health system, exists already experience how to handle these funds of pre-accession and post-accession, and all these funds and all this process, which probably will take 10 or 20 years, we already, you know, maybe we already play in this movie, you know.
Good. So we learned what means managing, protecting a critical infrastructure which is 40% destroyed. Yeah, Mr. Nazarenko spoke about. We learned about the sterilization, medicine sterilization, why it is important, and it's happening on the private sector, but ruled by the government. Yeah, I mean it was an EU directive. Yeah. Then we understood what means following the EU rules, yeah, understanding and following them. So now we are switching to the policymaker, and not only policymaker, but from a distance you are seeing more clearly the picture. I mean, from the US, you might see better the reality, the European reality.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody in America should claim that we see the reality better than people right next to it and living it. But I think the topic is strategic infrastructure investment, and so it has sort of hidden meaning in it. One means strategic mean not, as you mentioned earlier in your example about nodes, not every particular infrastructure or investment would have the same value. Some are higher priority, some may be a little bit less. And then there is a trade-off. So, you know, you get little amount of money, where do you put in? So if you were to look at system of systems that you asked me to answer the question, I would take probably a three-pronged approach, just to start the discussion. One is certainly sectoral. Which sectors are important? We have got the health, we had energy. We can discuss that a little bit more. The other one is the financing of this infrastructure, which goes back to your point of actually knowing what's available, what's not available, how do you access the finance, how do you deploy it. And the second element is sort of the regional side of things. It's not just a national, but a regional perspective to look at it. So I think that would be a helpful construct to look at strategic investment. And the main important element in this is one of resiliency. I mean, we're talking about doing infrastructure development, infrastructure repair in a country at war. So like everything else, everything ought to be sort of subsumed to the needs of the war and the needs of what's going on right now. So resiliency, I think, is the key element, and I'll come back to it. What sort of an investment that enhances and optimizes resiliency? So that the overall objective is that we need to have resilient infrastructure across different sectors. And what's the framework that gives me maximum or optimum resiliency? So just on the sectoral side of stuff, we can come up with a lot of sectors, but we started this conference with the Prime Minister of Ukraine sort of go down the list of his or his country's primary sector. So he laid down, I'm glad he picked the name from President Biden's not now often used term, but build back better, so we can build back better infrastructure. But then energy was his number 2, and then the defense industrial complex was another one that he mentioned. Agriculture was another. Natural resources from mining is another area where he mentioned. Infrastructure and machinery manufacturing was another, and digital technology. This is the ones he said. So, I mean, they're as good as anything else. You can pick those or pick several of the other elements within that. Now, when you do investment in these sort of different sectors, I think is a critical idea is of resiliency of that infrastructure. So again, presuming that they'll get bombed out, they'll be harmed, so how do you build it? So do you build big and big bridges, or do you do modular stuff which can be done quickly? So one would, looking from afar, one would focus on what can be done in a sort of quick modular way, and modularity within the infrastructure adds to resiliency, so that you have not one major sort of single line of failure. You have multiple, and they can be, so that can be applied across every system. I can go sector by sector, but don't need to, so that's one element of it. The second is there's a lot of money that's coming in for infrastructure within the country. EU certainly, America, but even other countries are also participating. We talked in several other engagements that there may be bilateral subsidies, like the French, you mentioned, they are the special envoys. So a special envoy for construction from France, from Germany. So they have given high subsidies to French companies to invest, German companies to invest. There may be Romanian companies to invest also in energy. But some of those countries, different country to country, goes to rather large companies. So there's a demand for how do you get the small and medium enterprises also involved in the infrastructures, especially if it's a modular variety. So there's a lot of complication on the financing side of stuff. And in the end, you want some coordinated financing, or at least a coordinating clearinghouse where somebody can go one place on a digital platform and say, here are all the various funding mechanisms, here's what the risk mitigation efforts that are available, here's how you apply, here's how you contact. So there's not only an information issue, there's also a standardization or modality of issues, whether non-French companies can also look for French funding, non-EU countries can do that for that, non-Japanese company can look for, we got Japanese colleagues here, JBIC, and certainly from America. So I think in this case, I'm happy to report that at least on the US side, the Development Finance Corporation, DFC, does not have as strict of national nexus requirement as most other countries. So there's a way to look at it, and Q&A we can go more in it. But probably the most important element of the strategic investment really is the regional aspect of it. So if you're really looking for resiliency, let's just go to the energy element that was mentioned by the first speaker. The reason that Ukrainian energy situation is a lot better than it could have been with constant attacks is because of the ability to connect the Ukraine grid to a wider European grid so that you can get better energy. That applies similarly on agriculture exports. It is the ability again of Europe, Ukraine, to not just be limited to its own post, but to be able to get to the Romanian ports or other ways to get it. Is their ability to go up Danube River in barges. So regional connectivity is the number one way of building resiliency within the strategic infrastructure. So in some ways, I'll mention that in the next, I think, the concluding panel a little bit more forcefully and in detail. But in many ways, the idea of reconstructing Ukraine rather, I think that's an important element, but I would say integration of Ukraine to me is more higher priority than reconstructing it, because if I'm integrating Ukraine, then reconstruction is already happening to some degree, to a greater degree. If I'm just talking about reconstructing Ukraine, I know that's not intended, I'm just talking semantics here, then we're talking as if we are just doing it in one country. In a time of war, how much can we continue to invest money in it? So if there was a conference next year or ever again on this topic, I think it should be the integration and reconstruction of Ukraine. I think integration of Ukraine within the regional construct is the most strategic investment in infrastructure, period. A lot more than anything you can do in Ukraine itself. So I think that that's a really, really important part. And within that construct, we can go down sectorally, so it can make sense. So energy is self-evident. We just talked about the electric grid, but then we spent a whole session on natural gas. Ukraine has great storage facility, has a good pipeline connection. So again, how strong that is connected gets you the most bang for buck for infrastructure. Health, obviously, case is made, is there for the EU, you're connecting Ukraine to it. Again, because that's what gets you the resiliency within the system. Agriculture, another fantastic option. Defense industrial complex, we talked about it. My colleague mentioned earlier, Jim in Carafano in the morning session, that one of the important things we all should be supporting is the buildup of Ukrainian sort of defense industrial complex. Not just, again, Ukrainian, but Romanian to some degree, hopefully Moldovan to some degree, certainly Poland and others. So it is the collective defense industrial complex which is the most strategic thing than just putting all the eggs in one basket, which would be sort of Ukraine. So again, in that element as well, same thing applies with machinery, same thing applies to digital. So regional stuff, and within the region, I'll sort of mention sort of two important themes, or three, and then we can do Q&A. One is really the importance of the Black Sea. So then the idea is that the connectivity, at least in the western Black Sea, coming out from Odessa down to Constanza, down all the way to Istanbul. I mean, that strategic investment in the infrastructure in this part should be of the highest priority, not just of Ukraine, but all the countries, but for United States, for EU, for both economic and for defense and security reasons. And within that, a substantial ports initiative that ought to be built in. So I think that's, and again, there are multiple reasons for it. We can get into it. The second, certainly the element is, somebody called it a green corridor. I don't know if that's the name for sort of reinforcing infrastructure, sort of resiliency between Ukraine, Moldova and Romania. So I think if that's an issue, that should be of highest priority. Similarly should be the Danube River system for same exact reason. So these maritime elements given the geography of the issue would be of even higher sort of priority to some degree for all the issues that we talked about. So I'll leave it there. We can take any of those topics over. Thanks.
Okay. Yep, please.
If I may comment a little bit, I totally agree with you, Mr. ARHA, about the importance of integration. But in the same time, and we learned our lesson the hard way, I may say, back in mid-2000, I was in charge of Romania adopting the acquis communautaire in health matters. So being prepared to be integrated, it's of utmost importance. Otherwise, there will be no synergy, but we will become weaker together, not stronger together, as long as all of us are not well prepared for integration. Well, obviously, this is what we are doing in a very, very narrow field of ourselves.
Well, it works sort of both ways. So let's just say we spend a lot of time and money in sort of building the infrastructure of Ukraine, and the similar level of infrastructure is not available on its borders to the west, then Ukraine is not stronger. It's not. In fact, again, for obvious, you gave me the counterexample of this, that it didn't work out that way. So, one more time, I just think you can just step back and run through scenarios of how the war progresses. Let's just say it goes on for next 10 years. In some way or shape of where it is today, you get maybe 50, 100 kilometers this way, 50, 100 kilometers that way. But it does occupy space and time. It does have constant attacks like our colleague in Ukraine is going through. In that scenario, I think fundamentally, if I had to prioritize, again, just from far, it is the integration of the Western Ukraine into the system which will lead then Ukraine that much stronger and the region as a whole to survive and to come out much stronger from when it went in. So I think this sort of, and we can get again to the next panel, but my colleague mentioned 3Cs initiative is an important element that one can sort of look at specifically. There are several others which go this way or that way. But I mean, I don't want to hog the system, but there are several regional stuff that would substantially engage and enforce that.
I will pick some ideas and try to return to Mr. Nazarenko. Are you still with us, Sergei? Regional?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, good. Regional, the importance of being integrated into the region, the importance of the people, preparing the people, yeah, not only the system, but yeah, the mentalities. And I would say that how many employees is NPC Ukrenergo having? More than 7,000?
More than, yes, it's more than 7,000 people.
I would say that they are not employees, but they are heroes. They have to rebuild continuously what is destroyed during the day, to rebuild it during the night if possible, over the night, for the hospitals, for the important, for the critical institutions in Ukraine. I read that before the war in 2020, Ukraine being in the top 30 global electricity exporters, and now you are saying that 40% of the infrastructure is destroyed. Then I read that from time to time you need to import electricity. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some period we need to import electricity, but I think that Ukrainian energy system has big possibilities to grow and have a big opportunity to be one of the most producer of electricity in Western Europe, in Eastern Europe, which is.
Yeah, and I would go through the regional topic and ask you how was integrating your electricity network into the European electricity. I read a press release from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, November 28. You are saying that you fulfilled the key technical conditions to ensure permanent interconnection with the European network.
Yes, about 5 minutes ago, we became a member of NCE.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
How was the experience in dealing with the EU, in integrating your networks with the EU networks? How long it was?
It's take period about 5 years, maybe 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
From the start to for today.
Yeah.
It's about 6 years.
And 5-6 years ago, did not consider that such a war will happen and you will critically need this interconnection with EU?
Yes, but as I remember, many experts and many politicians said that it is impossible to become a member of NCE and to integrate into European energy system. But now it's a reality.
Good. Congratulations. It was not easy for you, I'm sure that also it was not easy for Romania, for any country, but it worth the effort. This is for sure.
Yes.
Question about the green technology. You said about new technology. In your continuous rebuilding your infrastructure, definitely you prove what means resilience. For sure, you will rewrite all the resilience theories. We in the West are using these theories. You will rewrite all these theories because your practice in rebuilding, in redefining the resilience, it is. I don't think that any other country would like to have your experience in resilience. Yes. Unfortunately, do you still have time to consider green technology?
Yes, but now to implement a more capacity of green technologies, we need to develop flexible generation. We need to develop more flexible energy system, and it's, as I know, it's a big task for all European system operators. But we still our green technologies still grow, but not in such level like before the war.
Again, I think just to make a point here, you gotta go from what the problem is and does it solve it. Problem is to have a reliable, resilient source of energy that can sustain attacks and be available.
Yes, yes.
That's the objective. Yes. Not to go around and get accolades and COP28 and some award for some sort of green or not. So I think if that's the role, then one has to see what sort of an energy source provides you this. So something that is smaller and pretty tight and provides lots of megawatts is a good way to go, like a small modular reactor nuclear. So SMRs would be the way to go in Ukraine because you get bigger bang for buck. Now to put in a green technology, either a lot of big solar panels or wind panels, one, it's a big infrastructure and it is a very target-rich environment, and you don't get that much out of it. Megawatt-wise, you get, so I think it would be good to look at the practicality of how that would work. And certainly having natural gas that they have, having Romanian natural gas being plugged into the electricity, having small modular reactors that can be easily deployed and even moved around, I think would be the way to go. And then wherever in the Western case, if the situations are right and they can put green technology, that is fantastic. But I think the focus ought to be on a little bit more practical and real in this given instance. Anyway, that's my thoughts. It'd be good to hear from what the colleagues in Ukraine feel about it.
Mr. Nazarenko.
Excuse me, it's a question for me.
Yeah.
Not can hear all.
Yeah. Are you considering small modular reactors?
Now we haven't in Ukraine a small modular reactor, but it's one of the part of our energy strategy, and we expect that in future we have such technology in Ukraine. We will have such technology in Ukraine.
Good. Then let's go back a little bit to health. Yeah. What would you recommend to our friends, neighbors in Ukraine, based on your experience? Yeah, what to consider first priority regarding health, the health system? And here I'm not considering only your current position, but your entire experience.
Well, again, I used to be a military, but in peacetime. So I'm in no position to offer counsel to such fearful fighters like the Ukrainians, opposing a way bigger aggressor. But still, it is obvious that they need the very basic of healthcare, emergency, trauma, to be there and to be very resilient in order to provide the first care for both combatant and civilians. That means that we need what we are talking here, basic infrastructure. Because, of course, nowadays we have very complex and very expensive treatments. But for a country at war, the basic care is way more important. And that will help them keep fighting and, well, settle the ground for reconstruction, rebuilding, integration, whatever. So, yeah, they want to work very hard in order to keep working those primary network of primary care, and also preparing for, again, integration, because some of the assistance, some of the help coming from European countries cannot be accessed, cannot be used as long as you are not using, I don't know, like in the railways, the same width of the railways. So in order to be able to receive some assistance, in order to be able to get some help, you have to be prepared to use the same basic principles and basic equipment. This is from the top of my head.
But I mean, also on the health, there's sort of, I mean, my colleague talked about verification of medicine going out, so that's sure fine. I don't see, it has never been a priority that I've read where to build the the medical industry of Ukraine being a primary goal, but an important element that is related to the health and the health infrastructure is just about saving lives who are fighting the war per se. And the tremendous advancement that America made both in Iraq and Afghanistan war was just the ability of, you know, how quickly you can get triage in other facility. Basically, once you get attacked, how quickly you can get that person out of the war zone into an hospital by mostly helicopter evacs primarily. So I think as this thing develops, and I'm sure Ukraine is already doing it, but it goes off to a factor, and this is technical assistance in the military side provided on a regular basis. But in addition to that, just the ability of hospitals and repair and recovery and sort of all the element that goes with it, that most probably would happen in Western Ukraine. But again, those kind of hospitals in the neighboring countries that you can come for recuperation and be able to go that. Again, the regional element of providing medical facilities, so you don't go all the way to Germany all the time when you get... Yeah, so I think, again, those are similar element of health that would be an important to look at while you're fighting a war.
Good. Now we have a few minutes left. If there is any question from the audience, yes, please.
Good afternoon, Greg Melcher. This goes to probably thinking about what you're going to reconstruct and where, but you know, you're going to have a substantial problem with the mines that are left, the unexploded ordnance from cluster munitions, from depleted uranium pellets. These are problems we've seen in other wars, and they've been a real dilemma in trying to deal with. We're still, I think I just read the other day, we're putting 20 million more into cleaning the depleted uranium up from Ukraine. So I'm just wondering, no one today's really talked about that problem. I wonder if you thought about that at all, because it'll be an impediment to reconstruction, depending on where you do it, obviously. And then since we have someone from the medical community here, when the war does stop, you're going to change from treating people that got hurt in the war to suddenly people stepping on cluster munitions and blowing legs off and things like that. So it'll be another whole type of problem. And there's certainly a lot of history from these other wars in the recent past to go on. But I wonder if you have some thoughts about these issues.
Would like to pick?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer, but do you want to answer the medical part, or?
Well, like I said, indeed, once the war is over, the big work will have to start, like it was also with our nations after the retreat from Afghanistan. But that will be a country with almost no infrastructure, at least in the eastern part of Ukraine. So, like Mr. ARHA said, it is very difficult to say from where to begin, because it will be so difficult. Then it is better first to go and rebuild a road for the ambulances and for the basic infrastructure to be rebuilt, hospitals and clinics and so on, or you should first address the people, and I guess this is the best way, getting people back to their capacity to work and to intervene, because without people you cannot have, I don't know, those roads or whatever infrastructure. There will be never enough infrastructure. I remember from my time in the NATO's medical committee. Also there were never enough medevac rotor wing capabilities. We will never have enough resources to address the injured people or all the casualties and whatever results from a war. Prioritizing the very few resources a country like Ukraine may have after the war, it will be probably of utmost importance. And I think again that the people should be the first priority.
So I think Greg, this idea is got to be looked at it in a sort of a case-by-case method. Does it make sense to invest right now to deal with it? So one area where it makes the most sense and the most work has been done is on mines in the Black Sea. So there you've got a real issue related to freedom of navigation. You've got this agreement that's going to be signed between Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey, which is going to look at mine clearing efforts, or at least tracking of it and other stuff. So I think that's where it kind of makes sense. Where it is most prevalent on the eastern side of stuff, particularly in the good ag lands of Ukraine, you know, yeah, you can do it, but to what purpose? I mean, you can clean it now and then they're going to do it more, and so we're not cleaning it now and doing agriculture. So they'll probably have to wait a little bit till you makes the time and effort to do it. So God bless us, and we ever get to that point. We have done that in other countries. I'm sure there'll be enough funding, or not enough funding, but anyway, the channels of funding are there if people want to get into that per se. But to use your element to go a little bit more without getting into the weeds of it, you need a kind of a strategic infrastructure platform which is structured, is staggered in some ways. So at this moment, you got to prioritize, the three most important priority sectors when you fight in a war and running an economy primarily are infrastructure related to fighting the war, in which you've got the defense production, you've got the ability of the military to move, to be able to communicate, and the ability to have energy and the lights on. So those are the four sectors where you've got to have the strongest sort of investment and sustained investment and at a government level investment that does make sure. After that, you got a lot of nice things to have, and those nice things to have would give you bigger bang for the buck when they are closer to the western borders with the European, NATO, EU countries. So that's where I think the regional effort comes into play, and it's also in the best interest of the regional countries to spend money on their own infrastructure, like Romania. So there are multiple levels to be able to do that. And then the financing has to happen where some big state capex go to big item, but then provide some sort of underlying elements which are not determined to be important strategic sectors, but gives a market a place to play where it can look for opportunities where bureaucrats may not have identified them. And so you just need to get some ability and money to get in so the SMEs can use that in a very entrepreneurial way to just, and if one thing Ukraine has demonstrated phenomenally, that not only the fighting spirit, but the entrepreneurial spirit of the Ukrainians has also been a bit of a revelation for people. So I think, so you would look for a sort of a structured, staggered infrastructure platform which allows for these things to happen in a coordinated way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are having just 1 minute for all the final remarks. And I'm starting with Mr. Nazarenko. Do you have some final thoughts you would share with us?
No, I already said all that I want, and I should add that cooperation, in some way, regional cooperation, can provide enough level of security, stability, and resilience in energy system and other systems.
Thank you. Domnul Mihai?
Well, I will sound cynical, but just learning that they managed to connect their energy system with the European one shows that despite the huge and immense tragedy the war is, the war also may speed up a little bit some, I don't know, beneficial processes in our region. So I guess we should use, again, this immense tragedy to make the most of it.
Domnul LUCACIU?
Yes, I will try to make a bridge from the question of from the last question and my last idea, and I will recome. It's very difficult to set where you must to start, because probably in some east of part you must start with make roads or not to make roads, to go a little deeper on the pyramid of needs, to clean the roads first in order to make. Okay, and maybe in west part of Ukraine they need a highway or to enlarge actual highway, so depend of the place. So this is for those reason I come and I say again, maybe state authorities that can integrate from Romanian point of view and from all European point of view to integrate these needs in order to inform also us to the possible, partner in this reconstruction. Maybe this is the main idea, somebody to have a big view. And this can be made only on political level, only on the state level or the European level or something like this.
Thank you very much. So, as a final key takeaways, at least from my side, are resilience is tightly, strongly related with regional integration and region, yeah. Regional, then focus on mentality also, Yeah, because only the investments only will not solve the problem, but also changing the mentality. You have to consider different way. Partnerships, modularity. Yeah. So these are my takeaways for resilience. Distinguished guests.
And
yes.
My colleagues here, idea. Maybe Romania should have a special envoy for Ukraine.
And a special. Of course. Thank you for reminding me this. Dear gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen from the audience, thank you very much for everybody. And please don't forget that the next panel will be a US strategy for the Black Sea, challenges and opportunities starting at 70-20. Thank you very much to everybody.